Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Bonnie. Hello, Bonnie, and hello, everyone. Welcome. I usually like yes. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alejandro Ibarra, and I'm here with Bonnie, whom I love, Bonnie Rodriguez. So first, just to make sure you're in the right place, this is a webinar. Bonnie and I are going to be talking about how to brand yourself for social media. We're both photographers and we're really big into social media, as part of our business. So thank you for being here. And we're both NIFA alumni, which is super fun. I kind of wish we had gone to school together, Bonnie. It'd be a good story.
Yes.
It would have been
Yes.
fun. Actually, why didn't you tell me what program did you do at NIFA?
Oh, I did a master's in photography in New York.
Oh, nice. I did it in LA. I was like, wait, how did we not cross paths?
Well, I did first year in LA, in New York, second year in LA.
Yeah, you did that route. Yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to do that too, but I don't know why I didn't. But now I ended up in New York anyway at some point. So, so that's good. Bonnie, why don't you tell everyone and myself a little bit about your background, where you're based, what kind of photography you're into, what got you started, all of that.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I do love interactive stuff, so if you have questions, don't be shy, put it there. We'll get back to them as soon as we can. I'm Bonnie Rodriguez, and I'm better known as Bonnie RCM. I studied journalism, and then I did my master's in photography at the New York Film Academy, which I'm very proud about, and that's why I'm so excited to be here. I started working as a photographer and had clients at Univision, and started photographing a couple of celebrities, very focused in the Latin community, like Camila Cabello, etc. And then after that, I opened my studio in Miami and started social media, which started really pretty much for my business, my studio. Then when I noticed that things were happening, I started doing it more and more, and then things really changed on that path. And now I do have a great community, which are in TikTok, 2 million, and on Instagram, around 700,000, where I share tips and tricks on how to look, but especially feel amazing in photos, which that helped me open the doors of my business in a completely different way and be able to partner with other companies like Urban Decay, like Stephen Madden, etc., etc., etc. And you, tell me about you.
Oh gosh, I don't want to follow that. I was like, why am I talking to Bonnie? Why isn't she doing the solo? First of all, I was just telling Bonnie before we started this going live that I love, if you haven't checked her out, like her content, her photo tips is so great because it's very practical tips. It's also very positive. The vibe's always, high energy. And I love how you make people feel through your content. And I think that's a super important, super powerful thing. Especially because you have such a huge audience, it's such a responsibility, but I think you handle it beautifully. So thank you for that. Thank you, Bonnie. Also really fascinating. No, I don't think people want to know. I'm kidding. Fine. Before I talk about myself, because I'll never stop once I start. Kidding. But like Bonnie said, we will be taking questions. We'll be holding those at the end of the session, the last 15 minutes or so. And there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, so you can just type in the question there, and we'll get to them eventually. As for me, like I said, my name's Alejandro. I was born in San Diego, raised sort of back and forth between California and northern Mexico for the first half of my year. I only started taking pictures when I was 17. I don't know about you, Bonnie, but it was never like in my mind, or it wasn't a goal of mine to become a photographer. Like I only really started calling how was it for you? When did you start?
It's like I knew. I started when I was 14 and I started doing little courses, but I'm from Venezuela, and in Venezuela, we don't have it as like a career. It's just like little courses.
Gotcha.
And I started doing that, and I fell in love with it.
Love. Oh, that's so great. I wish I would have done that when I was younger. Like had the opportunity, like even if it was just like a class or YouTube,
Yeah, well, YouTube, I wish that as well, but I think everything comes in the right time.
this is, yeah, good, great point. I only started when I was 17 through personal family reasons, but I was never really thinking of becoming a photographer, or I studied neuroscience. That was my
Oh, again,
major.
that's a big gap.
Can
And
you
what happened there?
so I mean, I studied neuroscience because my plan was always medical school, and then I got into med school. But then when I got that acceptance letter, I was like, "Oh, do I really want to do this? Do I want to go into like debt, like in student loans, and dedicate so much of my time, and because it's going to absorb me? I knew medical school and the medical field was going to completely absorb me, and even though I find it really interesting, I wasn't super passionate about it, and I was like, you know what? I don't think this is the route for me. And then I went to NIFA. And then I ended up at NIFA. Yeah, I studied filmmaking there in 2012. Wow, I've been with NIFA for a long time, y'all. So I did my BFA in filmmaking and then my master's in photography, and now I teach there. So it's been a part of my life for like 8 years now.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you,
So
NIFA.
yeah,
eight
make
years.
them look quick. And that's important because I feel like when you get into a career like photography or filmmaking, it's something that you really need to be. Well, any career, really. You
Yeah.
need to be passionate because you're going to do it a lot. So obviously, you need to like it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think in any profession, if you don't have the passion, you're not going to put in the work, and you're probably not going to get the success you think you can get. So even if I had gone into the medical field, and people say, well, if you're a doctor, you're obviously going to be successful. I don't think that's necessarily true if you're not passionate about it, and you don't. It's so much work. Those are long hours, y'all. So yeah, so for sure. And I don't. My journey with social media only started really when I started shooting celebrities. So what I mostly do for everybody who's here is I do portraits exclusively, and it's all entertainment industry. So it's actors, actresses, directors, whatever, all entertainment and celebrities. And it was really through working with you know people who were famous that eventually people started to sort of become curious about me, I guess, and sort of my work and who I was and whatnot. So it was indirect, and yeah, so it's really through them that I sort of gained a community, and it's fun. It's fun to play with. How do you? Maybe I'm jumping ahead. I don't know, but I mean, your audience is so huge, and what I love is that they're not just attracted to your work as a photographer, as a fashion photographer, it's also to you as a person. So like how do you handle mixing both for your social media?
Well, when I started social media, I started just with my photography work,
Yeah.
and it will be
Yeah.
just final results, a little bit of behind the scenes. It was pretty well, actually, to be honest, when I started on Instagram, I was just posting photos of my cat and me like walking around, like no purpose.
we all did that at first.
Yes. But then it evolved because of the studio to start showing really like a portfolio. But I feel like now social media, it's definitely a must. But a couple years ago, it was like, it is important, but it's not like the end all, like it needs to be everything, right? There was a little bit difference, I think.
Yeah.
And I do feel that when I started, everything really started because actually, when I was in NIFA, they asked me to make this exercise about self-portraits. And I started doing that, and I really created like a huge empathy on people that are being photographed, like not knowing really what to do. And I really love being behind the camera, not really in front of the camera.
Same. I hate being.
Totally. And then when I started photographing clients, and some of them had no idea what to do, and then I started like saying like, you can do this or that. So I started like preparing this kind of tips. And at the beginning, I'm like, this needs to be super pro. So I need to go and get a model and start showing the tips. But then models don't really want to look bad. They want to look their best all the time. So they were like, it's a cute idea, but like, And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. And then if it's good, it's good. And if it's not, it's not. If nothing happens. Like I just erase it.
And trying it. Yeah, of course.
And that was definitely when my account changed it completely, because I was sharing something that I was doing already with my clients to show it in social media, and it really, really made a difference. So I do think that, and this is like a tip,
That's
So,
tip for Bonnie, y'all. Get ready for this.
so when you start in social media, you need to start experimenting, and maybe you're not really sure what's the path, but you at some point you need to start getting a niche. Like I think that's exactly what you did, Alejandro. It's like I'm a portrait photographer, and like it happened like in another situation. I was getting married, and I was gonna hire a photographer, and I didn't want a photographer that did everything.
Of
Like,
course.
oh yeah, I do fashion, I do this. No, I wanted somebody that just did weddings and a very specific style. And if they do something different, I'm like, I don't want it. So I feel like when you're niche, you really get to find your real client, your potential client. So I think that's very important. So the people that follow me, it's like they want the tips, you know,
They know what they're gonna get. Yeah.
that they know
No,
what
I
they're going
think yeah, that is exactly true. Like that's what I tell my students all the time. It's, think of it as a potential. If you're trying to hire a photographer, just like you explained, you want to hire someone who's committed to the thing that you need from them.
to.
If like you said, if you want a wedding photographer and they do still life and landscapes and all that jazz, then you won't get the confidence that you would from someone who only does weddings, because
Yeah,
and what that does to you psychologically is, okay, they've dedicated all their time and creative talent to really understanding this category of photography, this genre, which is
yeah,
what I'm interested right now. When I don't want a wedding photographer, of course I won't hire them, but when I do, I know who I'm going to go to, and
yeah.
there's so much power in that.
Yeah,
I
it's a big
love it.
power. And then it's not really a question about any other stuff. They're like, I want you. So going to what you asked me, because I went to another route, that is uh, talking about myself as well. I do feel that there are many photographers and there are many doctors and there are many everything in the world, but what really makes you different, it's you. Like nobody's like you. Like you are funny. I just like I've been talking to you for like a second. I'm like, you're funny. So like I wanna work with you. I'm like, and you show that in social media. I'm like, oh yes, right? So I do show, and not all my life, but I do show part of my life, and that had evolved because at the beginning I was so shy. So it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm like, hi, and then that started evolving, right? And now it's different. How do you feel about being in front of the camera and talking about your behind the scenes or personal life?
To me, it's pretty much the same way it started for you, where I was all well, but way back when I first opened Instagram, it was personal life mixed in with some pictures and whatnot, like photo work. And then eventually, when I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna be serious and take this seriously and use this as a platform to really help my business grow, that's when I was like, okay, it's only gonna be a photography account, no personal stuff, because honestly, nobody cares about that except people who know you already. Like
Yeah,
that's just the hard truth, y'all. If you're on Instagram or any social media and you're trying to do it for business, keep your personal life out of it, because nobody cares. That's just the hard truth. Then nor should they. And you should. It's not personal. You shouldn't care if they don't care. It's just it has nothing to do with your business. So make it about the business. So I did what you did. It was all photo work. In my case, it was easy because I've only ever shot portraits. So it's really mostly portraiture. Actually, I have a couple of example images to show you of how it was when I started, and then when you really pick a niche, like you said, which is really important. Who are you? What are you offering? I'm the portrait guy to people, the studio portrait guy, the maybe celebrity portrait guy, whatever it may be. And so when they come to me, they know what they're going to get. That's very powerful psychologically. That's why they follow. When you're consistent with what you're putting out, if they like one thing, they're going to like all of it. They're going to follow. If they don't like it, then they don't follow in period. But weirdly enough, the more specific you get in your niche, the wider your audience becomes.
and it's interesting that at the beginning, or at least I felt that, and I see it a lot with people that are starting. Is like, who do you want? And in any situation, who do you want to? Who's your client? What do you? It's like everyone. Everyone is my client. Everyone, and it's like when you try to go for everyone, you end up going for nobody.
No one, exactly.
And then when you have a tribe that really loves portraits or really love your tips, then they're gonna start being passionate about it and spreading the word, and then it becomes a bigger thing. If
Yeah.
not, it's confusing.
Yeah, exactly right. I love that you said that. I have a couple of images here to show. They're literally just screenshots of my Instagram. If y'all could put them up. This first one is okay. So this is when I was already sort of putting work in with a little bit of personal. Like on the bottom left, you can see me being really like hangry because I hadn't eaten, so I'm like just like upset. But it's like aesthetically a nice picture. So here's like a mix of stuff, right? Like there's a random eye. I was doing a lot of experimental work as well back in the day, where it was all done in camera. All of these are without Photoshop; they're done in camera. And so I was just playing and just sharing them without really thinking about what is what is my niche, who am I, what's my brand, who do I want people to know me as, who am I as an artist, period, and as a as a business. And so this is the before I really figured that out, and I was just sharing content. And then we go to the next picture. This is now kind of what you really will see, which is immediately you know who I am. If you see one picture, you kind of see all of them in a way, right? And that's the goal. I think that's how you really grow your audience. That's how you grow your business, is you deliver consistent work that's in a consistent field, because anybody who likes one of these is going to then automatically like everything, and then that gives them confidence.
I completely agree. I love the transformation, that you can see the transformation. That's awesome.
Yeah, and those are just literally screenshots. So when you apply these things that Bonnie and I are talking about, when you get specific and you figure out who you are as a photographer, as an artist, as a business, period, and who you're catering to, then you focus it like that. It's a clear visual difference, and that's what makes it pleasing and satisfying to people. That's why they follow, and that's why they hire you.
And I feel like the experimental side, it's so important, because like in my case, if I didn't start experimenting, then maybe I will be doing something completely different right now. So don't stop creating as an artist, or never stop creating till you find that thing that you really love, because sometimes you get so scared that it needs to be like perfect, and you need to give yourself room for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
What about platforms? Which one do you use?
I mainly use Instagram. That's really been the main one. I have a friend here that's like trying to scare me. But I mainly used Instagram. That's been my main thing. I have a Twitter that I don't really use, honestly. I should use it more. And I only opened TikTok recently. But again, it's like I have it on the side. I should be more proactive like you are. But Instagram, once I sort of built my audience on Instagram, and then I started noticing just like work coming in, which was always my goal. P.S. You need to think about what your purpose with social media is. If you just want to grow an audience and have followers for the sake of followers, like it doesn't really, I don't think, mean anything. Like Bonnie and I are approaching it from a business point of view. We're trying to help you, grow your business, get that money, pay those bills, because that was my motivation, y'all. So Instagram really has worked incredibly for me. I'm very grateful, and that's the one that I stick to. I know you're like super active and it's like all over and amazing, and I'm jealous, and I should be more like you. But tell me how. But you use them differently too. So tell me about that.
I think that that's a good point. Like a very common question is like, should I do everything? Like, do I need to be everywhere all the time? And I didn't start with everything, because at the beginning it becomes overwhelming, and to create content, it sounds like, oh, that's fine, but it does take time. So I feel like you need to start or stick with the one that really, the media that works for you. Like, for example, writing, it's not my strongest field. Like, I don't feel as confident or comfortable writing something very long, but I do know people that love writing. So they express themselves better that way. In my case, I think I communicate better through photos. And then I realized that actually it's faster for me to deliver my message through video. So I use both very strongly. So the other stuff, it's kind of more on the side, but you need to stick with one that you feel comfortable with. And then you can really shine. Some people like podcasts, like it really depends. Yeah. But in my case, I do YouTube. My three main platforms are YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. At Twitter, I feel like it's not for me. Like the vibe, I'm like not for me for some
Yeah.
reason.
No, I
And,
get it.
and Facebook, it's really, it, also you need to think about how much visibility you have in a platform or a platform offers you in a period of time.
Yes,
So
exactly.
TikTok 6 months ago was given crazy amount of organic reach,
Engagement, yeah.
like crazy. It's not the same right now, but it was like very crazy. And at this second, like Pinterest is doing very well with traction. So you kind of, you can play with that
Yeah.
depending. But yeah, those are my three main.
How do you how do you manage sort of like making sure your brand is consistent across all three, or do you use them, where, TikTok is just photo tips and then Instagram is just fashion work with some tips? How do you make sure that when they're on any one of these profile of yours, they're like, oh, this is Bonnie photo tips, this is Bonnie Rodriguez?
I did my branding with like a graphic designer and blah blah blah. I just think that's important, and I know it's like investing in the beginning, but I think it's important that you do that for your website, for your logo, for everything. And also the format that I use, I said check, and the X is like a very specific shape that we made. So try to be consistent in that case, but I do I just treat my audience depending on the platform. So somebody on Instagram, it's really there for photos, maybe for like more like a quick
Yeah,
thing, a
very
fun
quick.
time. Like people on YouTube are more there to like listen and be like very, so obviously the content is sort of different but similar. And TikTok, it's very similar to Instagram. I just changed the format because if
Yeah.
you don't change it, it doesn't work.
Translate the same, yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't.
for sure.
But yes, and how do you do?
Um, well, similar to you, like I love that you said that you have, visual cues that are consistent, like the little checks and stuff. I think those are important. For any of you out there who maybe don't want to hire a graphic designer, or maybe you're like, oh, that's too expensive for me right now, I'm starting out. I know nothing about design, and I did all my own stuff, y'all, because I'm cheap. So like literally what I did, I was like, I need a logo. Okay, like you said, like, it's important to have a consistent logo. So I was like, I need a logo. And it all started with, what is my work, who am I as an artist? What does my work say? What is my message? And well, I guess now all of you have seen the work. It's like you saw a screenshot of my profile, but it's, even though it looks maybe, like I hear some people say it's elegant, it's actually quite the opposite in terms of the process. I always shoot in my living room, or in living rooms. I don't use photo studios. I just set up the backdrop and the light in the living room or in the hotel room of the celebrity or whatever, and it's all very casual. My directing process is very casual. Everything is very casual, so I knew I wanted my logo to feel that way and my overall branding to be that way. Because I think it's also just sort of my persona. Like I'm zero classy, and so like, which my mama hates if she's watching this. Alejandro, like, and I'm like, I don't care. And so I just did it myself. I was like, okay, I'm gonna handwrite my logo. So I was like, it makes sense for me. So I took an iPad and I literally like wrote my initials a bunch of times until I saw one that felt handwritten but pretty enough. And then I was like, there's my logo. And then for my website and stuff, I, went on Squarespace and Wix and a bunch of stuff. And they have great tools for you if you want to do it yourself because you're either on a budget or starting out, or because you just
Also
want to do
Canva.com.
Canva. Yeah.
Canva, you can make like a full online of your designs and just repeat it, and it's free.
Yeah. And that's great for like, making stories, like having templates for all the content is really, really cool. Canva. Yeah, so I do it all myself, and logo is a big part. I also feel, so at first it was all about the work. I only started showing my face on my profile. I think when I hit around like 100K maybe, for an audience on Instagram, because then it's like people cared enough about the work to be curious about me. I started getting messages of like, what do you look like, and like, or who are you, what do you sound like, all these things. And I was like, do I want to open that,
Yes, you do.
yeah. And then I did. I was like, okay, it makes sense at this point. At first I was like, no. And then I did. And so now I do it in stories. Obviously you want your grid to be about the work as much as you can. You want to, again, unless part of your branding is your personal life and it's part of your business, and of course, but for me, it's not really. It's, I do the portraits, and so I use stories on Instagram as a way of showing my personal side. And actually, my TikTok is also about that. I use a lot of comedy for TikTok and for stories. So I love comedy. I love writing
I can
comedy.
see that. That's cool.
Yeah, I love doing that. And
I'm
so
not funny. I like funny people, but I'm not funny.
I'm sure you'd be fine. Uh, so that's how I started to sort of blend in a little bit of my own daily life or my personal life was through comedy, because then it still feels relevant to the branding because it's how I shoot, how I direct people. It's all done, you know, in a comedic way. In a way, it's hard to explain, but so I don't feel like I'm doing something completely different, but people still get to see part of how my brain works and how I am with my clients.
In my case, I do have, and especially because I say, like, yeah, the transformation of the account as well. So I do partner a lot with other brands for, for ads in my social. So in my case, I divide my grid in three. So one, it's like the tips, the photo tips, the main part. The second part of my Instagram, it's pretty much like either tips that it's related with apps or stuff or fashion, things that surround photography, because we all know that photography, it's one, especially in fashion photography, maybe not in other areas, but in fashion photography, wardrobe and like all this stuff kind of mix in and share your message at the end of your photo.
Yeah.
So I talk a little bit more about that, which is fashion, apps, etc. And then the third part of my Instagram, it's part of my personal life. So it's like people that follow me kind of understand
Right.
what I'm gonna get through.
So each column is a part, is an aspect, right?
And it's actually easier for me to make content because, it's like, okay, today I'm gonna make tips, or today I'm gonna make, and so on.
Yeah, it's a nice way to stay organized. How often do you post, like on grid?
It really depends on reach and stuff. But normally on Instagram, it will be once a day. On TikTok, on TikTok once a day. But when I saw that the reach was really good on TikTok, I was posting like 6 to 8 times a day. It was crazy.
Dang.
I went crazy.
I mean, yeah, TikTok's algorithm is all about you constantly sharing.
Constantly sharing, yeah. So it was crazy, but you don't need to do that. I feel like if you do it, like, it doesn't matter. I think that if you're consistent, you see it. Like if you post once a week but it's consistent once a week, or you will see results on that. How often do you post?
I was really bad for a long time. So I used to post once every day this was years ago. And then once a week. And then honestly, like this year, I think I finally started posting again, but I hadn't posted since like March. I hadn't posted anything since like March. Yeah, because I don't know. I can't
imagine my life without.
Well, I was active on social. I was doing a lot of stories. I have on Mondays. I have this a comedic section, a comedic sketch that I do every Monday, and so there's some consistency there, but I don't know if you've encountered this in your social media career, but I got to a point where I started thinking, does this matter? Have you ever had that thought? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm comfortable with what my business is. It's more than I can kind of handle right now. So I'm like, I'm grateful. And then I'm like, what message? I mean, your content's different because your content is so, like I said, I love how you make people feel with it. And so with the photo tips and all, so I think that definitely matters and is important. Sometimes I feel like my work is, I'm putting people who are famous and just giving them, a platform again. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like I'm not doing enough. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling. And I'm sure maybe some people here have thought that too. Like, why does this matter? Why should I do this?
Yes. I feel, I have the feeling, but I do think that it's worth the risk, Mm-hmm. Like it's worth to experiment and seeing if you like some stuff, and even some things that you might think that they're not relevant, but they they're relevant for somebody.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going through an experience and that helps somebody else. Like, for example, I started just like a random thing. I started the tips and it's like, okay, yeah, this is cool, but like people are liking it. But to be honest, the best part was it is still when people send me a message.
Feedback. Yeah, of course.
Me, I felt always so no photogenic, so uncomfortable. Like I felt like I was ugly. I felt this and that, and now I feel more empowered. And now I feel like I can do it. And that is like, oh my god, this is so much. This is cooler. You know, like this is the real thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
No, that's what I'm saying. Like the way your content makes people feel, I think is so important.
but when I started, it wasn't that way. When I started, I was a crazy person. You know, like when you're friends, I'm like, Mom, can you give me a like? Or like, you know,
okay, share this.
Not that way. And it's just you like mumbling there.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I mean, I do, sorry, I keep going. What?
No, but it's worth the risk. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know like, it's just things that, we all sometimes doubt our own work, we have our insecurities and whatnot. And, I feel like my work, at least the one that's on my main Instagram profile, it's basically just entertainment people looking interesting, hopefully. I'm not helping people directly like you are, but then I feel like that's where,
it's inspiring.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, oh, okay. I get messages, people like, oh, your work is like, blah, 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 whatever. And they say nice things. And I'm like, oh, great. Like someone's being inspired by this. That's great. But I feel like also a good thing that can come out of these dots is, or these insecurities about the work you're creating is just inspiration to make more personal work. I feel like personal work is so important to our like just mental health as artists and creatives. And that's where a lot of the rewards come from as well. Like just satisfaction of like, you know what? So I made this series called Coming Out Stories, which has its own Instagram profile.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that has been like, I think by far, what's been the most rewarding experience that I've done is just because people it was all over the world. It kind of went viral when it first came out because BuzzFeed shared it, and then it just went crazy. And it was nice to see people like messages from people all over the world, just being grateful that something like that exists. Not like to me or being like, you're amazing, nothing like that, but like just finding stories that they connect to. And I feel like at the end of the day, y'all, that's like the goal. That's the whole point is you want to connect with people, connect with how they're feeling, or what their needs are. That's how all the magic happens. It's all about connecting because it's social media. That's what this is.
Yeah. I do like to think for people that are here that they're not really sure what to post or whatnot. I'd like to divide, or the way that I see it, many creators in threes. So one of them are the educational content, which I think my content goes.
Yeah.
The second, it's inspirational content, which I think it will go to you. And also people are like fashion bloggers. I'm like, well, makeup blog. It's more like inspiration. Right. And also entertainment, which is like the funny, the thing. So I feel like if those three routes are the most likely that you grow your audience, because when it's maybe just personal, it's very hard. At least that you're already a celebrity, then it means that you are doing your work in another platform, but you're doing work, and then this is like your personal stuff. Mm-hmm. But as a regular, like I started with zero, I wasn't famous or like an actress or nothing.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you want to start to either brand your business or work on your personal brand or whatever, those three lines are the most important thing to start. Because at the beginning I didn't know, so I was like just doing whatever.
Doing everything, yeah. No, I completely agree. And again, it's one of those things that we all need to just accept that if we aren't just naturally famous, because like you said, we aren't on TV or movies or sons or daughters of famous people, no one's going to care. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to understand that if you're only sharing your personal life and you're like one of us who started with nothing, only the people who know you are going to care, which is solid. If you want to share your personal life, go for it. We're not saying you can't do that. We're saying if you want to grow as a business, if this is for business purposes in terms of an audience, you need to distance yourself, at least at the beginning, like you said, because it's not going to be about you. And like you and I, we started just sharing the work. Eventually, when we had an audience, then people cared, and we were like, okay, now I feel like if I say something, some people might be interested, you know. So yeah, that's sort of how it, I think, goes for most of us who
What
are.
about making your work interesting? I mean, I know that you have like a specific way to post on your grid, but how do you make things interesting on your stories and all this stuff?
Great question, Lonnie. I have no idea. No, so yeah, so it's tricky with me a little bit because, like y'all saw on that screenshot, I feel like I have a very specific aesthetic that people now expect. So if I deviate from that too much, it's weird and it doesn't fit. It's not cohesive anymore, you know? So I need to sort of stick around it. So I use stories. Stories is where I keep things. So I added this like comedy sketch show every Monday, like I said. And I try to exclusively do comedy and stories because it's where I get to sort of have fun, you know? Not that I don't love taking portraits. I love taking portraits, but you know, my grid has a structure. It's, you know, it has a rule, and I don't deviate from it because it could hurt my business. And so every now and then I do experiment, but only now because I feel like I can. People now get it. I feel like if you follow me, you get it, and you've gotten it for years now. So it's, I can throw something different at you, and you'll be like, oh, cool, and then go back to regular programming. Uh, but stories is really where I get to explore, and I share a bunch of my other work and stories, like, and I save them as archives. So this is what I suggest to other people. If you know you want to be known as a wedding photographer, have your grid only be weddings, and then maybe do archive stories of street or other stuff where it's not going to be permanent. It just shows like hobbies, quote unquote, that maybe you like. So I have my street photo work in archives. I have motion landscapes that I just do for fun. I do a lot of stuff with motion portraits. So I use stories a lot to explore and also get people to see something different of mine without ruining
Yeah.
the vibe. What about you? I mean,
And,
you do different things, so it's, I guess, maybe easier.
and also to keep it interesting, if I do social, sometimes we forget, and people forget that social media, it's social. Like, it's about talking with other people and like about connecting with other people. So I do take very, very, very seriously the feedback from my community. So like I'm always asking them questions like, how do you feel when you get photographed in the street? How do you feel when you are photographing with your family? How do you feel? You know, like I'm always asking for feedback and checking comments and all this. So from there, I start creating new content to give them answers to that. Yeah. So it's a way to keep it fresh, but it really comes from the community.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And that's also for everyone listening, that's a great way to increase your engagement and, you know, have the algorithm kick in more for you. Is actually engage with your audience. You need to be there and replying to their comments. And a very popular use is what Bonnie just described, is in your caption, you know, whatever you just talked about or whatever the picture's about, ask them what they think about something, you know, or how they're feeling or whatever. And that is a cue for them to engage with you. And then you can engage back.
It happens sometimes that back in the day, some of my friends were like, yeah, but I ask a question and nobody answers. And I'm like, yeah, it was the same for me. Like, I'll be like a story. I had like, I don't know, 100 people, you know, like your friends from school and like all this stuff. And I'm like, how are you feeling today? And it's like, nobody answer. And like, that's fine. But with the time, what you're doing there is that you're kind of like not training, but like adjusting your audience of giving feedback as well. And I think that's really helpful for the future. Anyways.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And yeah, and even if they don't answer like on a comment or share, you know, reply to you their thoughts, you're still making them sort of think. And I think people appreciate that. Like the fact that you're talking directly to them, that's how they feel when they're reading your caption, because you're, you know, typing it. But they feel a connection to you that's more intimate and more direct. And even if they don't reply, they keep you in the back of their minds, or the way you make them feel for longer, and then that gives them a cue to sort of maybe engage next time, or just be more aware that you're considerate of, like, you know.
Yeah, you're considerate.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like you said, it is social. It's not just a one-way street. I feel like if you do things one way, like I noticed that once I did start to put my face in front of the camera and do things like that, like what you're saying, my engagement just skyrocketed, because it's no, like with me, it's like they see the picture and what they got, they're not gonna always comment nice picture, you know, like they
Yeah.
just won't. They just maybe
People
they'll like it.
connect to people. So
Yeah,
whatever you think it's like, for example, I have a cat, and that's like a huge link for many people. Say, "Oh, I have a cat too. Oh my God, it's so
exactly,
cute." You know, it's a,
exactly. Like I
it,
have a mustache now, and I feel like people
and
really
then
respect it. Everyone with a mustache is like, yeah, mustache.
I do want
uh,
to ask you if you needed to start from the beginning before we move on to the
the
Q&A.
Q&A, yeah.
What will be a tip or a couple tips that you can share to grow your audience if you are in zero?
I think the biggest thing is what we discussed. I think you need to ask yourself who you are and what you're trying to sell. And I don't take that in the wrong way, like, oh, like, you know, you're always trying to sell something, or you're selling out, or it's about money. It's not just selling in terms of money, but psychologically, what are you, how are you presenting yourself? So I think first you need to figure that out. Really ask yourself, who am I? Am I a photographer? What kind of photographer? Am I a landscape photographer? Am I a portrait? Am I a wedding? Am I a fine art? Well, figure that out. Really break it down and hone into a niche, like Bonnie said. That is the first and most important thing,
Yeah.
because that's going to help you have a consistent um, aesthetic, really, and portfolio. People will take you more seriously, and like we said, like Bonnie beautifully put, you know, the more focused you are, the wider your audience becomes. So I think that's number one. I would say. What about you?
I will go in the growing aspect of the platforms. But you absolutely need this first step, because if not, it's not gonna work. I feel like collaborations with other artists or people that are doing similar stuff to you, or not necessarily similar, but like it's in sync, it will help you to spread the word of your business. Like one of the main things that I used to do, especially when I was starting out, I will do a lot of collaboration with other bloggers, other artists, maybe some actors. It's like, okay, let's make a collab, and then we mention each other. So people, it's like, it's really nothing new. It's just that it's less expensive, because before, if you wanted to make an ad, you need to go on TV, which is really expensive, or need to be in a magazine, which is really expensive as well. Or you relied on, you know, word of mouth, which still works, obviously.
Yeah, of
But
course.
social media is like word of mouth reloaded, because
Exactly. It's much more.
it
It can go skyrocket in a day.
skyrocket, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
So I feel like collaborations and partnerships are really key to growing in social.
I agree. Influencers are a billion-dollar industry, y'all. Let's take advantage of it, especially if you're starting out. Yeah, it's a way to. It's like paying for advertising in a way. You know, you're just,
Yeah.
you know, collaborating. So
And
I think when
especially,
you're starting out, it's a good thing to do. Only when you're starting out.
yeah, when later on you don't want, and especially because you're already going to have an audience, so it's different. But
Yeah.
if you have no audience, no nothing, and you want to get the word out, it's a good way to collaborate. And still, like, for example, I don't, in my case right now, I don't collaborate like photography. I collaborate making content. So
Yeah.
we do a video together. I share a tip about photography, and my friend share tips about fashion, and then we recommend each other. So stuff like that is what really makes share the word.
Fantastic. Yes. So I think
So,
we're ready to get started with the Q&A. So I'm very excited about. So I'm just gonna go and start asking questions, Bonnie. So Samantha asks, should we have two different accounts? We as in everyone. What do you think?
I think that it really depends on what kind of content you want to make. If you want to really just focus on the business, I do think that it's great that you have your personal account where you put like your dog photo and all this stuff that doesn't necessarily resonate, which is normally the best way, honestly. But you can also mix it up, but just a tiny bit, like it's your business, and then like sprinkles of your life at the beginning. But uh, I honestly, yeah, have two accounts. I just think it's too much work, so kind of
Yeah,
like,
I agree. I do think if the question is about two different accounts because you want to keep sharing your personal life, you can maybe do that in stories like I do. That way you're not really, ruining your grid with your business grid. If or let's say if it's not about personal or professional, if you love two genres of photography and you want to share both, um, it depends on the genres, I would say. Like some you can marry, some you can't, or you can find ways to organize like how Bonnie does, where one column is one thing, one column is another, the other is another, and it'll still feel, satisfying as a design. So you could find ways to do that, or open two. Like I have two. I have my photo account, and then I have the photo series coming out stories as its own profile as well. So I have those two that live separately, because I figured it was strong enough of a series for it to have its own profile that I can just be sharing when I shoot for that.
yeah.
So okay, cool. Let's follow along. So Thomas asks, do you feel that after a while of following a same cohesive feel, breaking that mold yields detrimental or good results for your overall feed?
I am a big believer of experimenting.
Yeah.
So I do think that it needs to be, again, you need to have your brand, but you need to really experiment on the way, because if not, you're not really gonna know if something can be even better than what's happening right now. And so I do think that you need to be consistent, but experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah, like I would say it depends on where you are. Like if you feel like your business is established enough, definitely. Like I feel like the first most important step is sort of first like having establishing your business. What is it about? What does it look like? Once you feel like that's clear, like you've done that enough, then I'm like, yeah, for sure, experiment. And here's a cool thing. Now you don't even have to, like, if you post something that you feel is too out there, you don't have to delete it. You can just archive it for later. Yeah.
So it doesn't, it's not gonna really hurt your, well, at least that you're doing something outrageous, it's not
Yeah.
gonna hurt your business.
Yeah. You'll either, not notice anything or see an improvement is what I would say. Yeah. So I would say try it. And if it doesn't work for you, then archive it. Um, yeah. Cool. Moving on. Yoni asks, oh, me. Hi, Alejandro. Sorry, Bonnie. Bye. So how to approach and reach out to celebrities, how to find who to contact that will answer, what is the correct message that will get them to answer. Oh, we met at the open house in December. Cool. So I feel like this is also for you, Bonnie. Like this is not just me celebrities, but collaborations with, bloggers and influencers. I feel like it's appropriate. So let me click this. So I'll tell you exactly what I do. I'll just full on tell you exactly how I reach out to celebrities. There's a couple of ways. I feel like 50% of it right now, at this point in my career, 50% they reach out to me, either them or their publicist. The other 50% is I reach out to them like direct message, or I write a comment. Like if there's someone I really want to photograph, I turn on post notifications so that I know as soon as they post something, I can be one of the first ones to comment. And I make sure I type in a witty, funny, relevant comment, and hopefully that gets their attention. That's one. But the actually, so I got a few people. Like I got Bobby Burke from Queer Eye that way. I got Ellie Kemper from Breakable Kimmy Schmidt through a comment. And so if if you do this right, this can work. But the more traditional business way that I do it is I find the publicist information. The way I do that is I use IMDb Pro. So you pay a monthly fee. I think it's $20, and you can type in any celebrity that's been in a movie, including musicians who have had music in movies. Type in their name, and it'll tell you who their agent is, publicist, the phone number, their email, everything you need to contact. So don't be afraid. If there's no email, don't be afraid to call. I know most of people now are afraid to pick up the phone and call. Yo, that's how I got my job at NIFA. I called David. He didn't even, I think he knew who I was at that point because we had met in LA. But I was like, David, I'm in New York. I want to teach. And so don't be afraid to pick up the call because no one does. And if you do and you're nice, they'll remember you,
Yeah.
Like don't be like pushy about it. But Otherwise, a quick email will work. Don't be overwhelming. One short paragraph, introduce yourself, say, hi, I'm a portrait photographer based in Chicago, like Bonnie. And I've attached a quick sample of my work right there on the email. And here's my website and Instagram. If you'd like to work together at some point, let me know. Have a wonderful day and rest of your week, etc. Simple, y'all. So that's how I do it. What about you, Bonnie?
When I started, because when I moved to Miami, I started working with a magazine. So I did have access to people that had followings just at the beginning. So I started, because of the work, I started meeting people and then got referrals. But when I wanted to make a collaboration with something, again, specific, I will just DM them, same thing. And then at some point when I was really, really little, I will like bombard. Like, it wouldn't be like just one. Look, I'll be like, hi, hi,
Yeah,
hi.
exactly.
Because you need to be intense. You know, if not, you're not really, I mean, people are really busy, so you kind of need to be there. Same thing, well, now it's not the same, but at the beginning when I was working with brands, same approach. I like a brand, I would send my media kit, blah, blah, blah. Now it's different because of the following, so it's more organic. But I feel like you need to reach out and don't be afraid, because the people that you less think will answer.
Yes, that's so true. And I love that you said that. There's power in numbers, y'all. Like if you only message one person, they're either going to answer or not. But if you message 50 people, you raise your chances that someone will say yes. And all you need is one yes, y'all. My first yes was Ricky Martin, I think. And I had no one. And just, I just took a shot. And well, I took several shots, but I had one yes. So
Yeah.
all
And
you
then,
need, yeah, and that opens the door. So yeah, you do have to just put yourself out there. Don't be afraid of rejection. Never take it personally. It's not really about you. So don't worry. So I have a question that I think is really important. So Mariana asks, as a teenager, how can you deal with hate on your platforms and bring it to the positive side?
I mean,
You're like,
I'm like reading again. Okay. I really think that, well, as a teenager, I think it's a little bit more delicate
yeah,
because you're in a different space of mind. And to be really honest, the more you grow, the more opinions people are going to have, and the
yeah,
more, you know, because I saw a video not that long ago that it was like a girl saying a statement like, I like bananas. And then she start posting like other comments. People are like, bananas, that's outrageous. My cousin is allergic to bananas. And then somebody else is like, what about avocados? And, so it becomes like this crazy, like you're saying something that it doesn't necessarily mean what, and it's simple.
yeah,
It doesn't need to be outrageous. And it can be really twisted. So yeah, them, especially in a platform like TikTok, that you can really post something and be viral for not specific reason. You really need to have some sort of tough skin, but I just think that you can't take things too seriously. You can't take it seriously because people are in bad moods. Maybe that's the thing that they saw, they understood in another way. Like, you can't control what people think, but you can control what you but if you know that you're doing the right thing, then you can control it and be sure about that. So I guess the way is not to take it too seriously, but I know that as a teenager, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, I agree. I love that you said you can't control what people think or say, but you can't control how it affects you. It sounds like you can. I mean, it might feel like you can't control it, but you just have to be aware. Mariana, I'm going to speak to you directly, and anybody here, because I used to just try to be the bigger person and ignore hateful comments, but I've realized that people who do that feel empowered to keep doing that if you don't put a stop to them. First, you need to realize that the problem is entirely theirs. It has nothing to do with you. So like you said, it could be they're having a bad day, whatever it is. And they, for whatever reason, feel like, letting it out on you is a healthy way of dealing with their issues when it's not. But be aware that it has nothing to do with you, sweetie. Honey, you're beautiful, you're perfect. This is their problem. And honestly, what helps me, because I get a lot of hate, especially when I release the coming out stories. You can imagine a lot of like, homophobic people started, and it's kept up ever since. But I don't care about those people. They literally don't matter to me. Their opinion doesn't matter to me. Like Bonnie said, and I'm so happy she said that. I'm comfortable because I know I'm doing something like the right thing, quote unquote. Like I'm not doing anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with me, the work I'm creating. If somebody's offended by it, when I know it's not offensive, it's their problem. If they want to be hateful, it's because they're hateful. So I know it's hard because I know this. I'm 30 now, just turned 30, and so it's easy for me to like rationalize it. As a teenager, I'm sure it's trickier, but I urge you to try to separate their life, their hate from anything that has to do with you, because it doesn't, honey. So you do you. Be comfortable. If you're doing something that feels right to you, ignore everybody else. Do it for you. I guess that's all I can say. But thank you for that question. It's 4:58. I don't know if we have time for another question or if I should like wrap this up. I'm
One
not
more.
hearing.
One more. We answer
One
fast.
more. Okay, quickly. Uh, um, okay. For you, Bonnie, how to start on TikTok? What hack strategy has worked better for each one of us, but for you because you're huge.
And try to keep it simple, very simple. If you're gonna say hacks or anything like that, try to do something that people can replicate. So it could not like a very outrageous makeup, for example. I'm just saying an example. Just do something simple so people can get on it fast. Be very careful with your words at the beginning so it's catchy, and make movements. You that are in filmmaking, and know this, like the more shots you get, like straight down, it becomes more entertaining
Yeah.
of a video, dynamic to see. So use that in your advantage. I think that title, shots, and and use trending music. That will help.
Yes, huge using trending music. Um, it's interesting how a lot of musicians right now are being discovered because of TikTok. Being on a trend is what makes hit songs now. Crazy.
And if you don't know what to really do, if you show your journey, that works very well on TikTok as well. Like your journey of being a portrait photographer, your journey on discovering yourself. People, that makes people very engaged, depending on how you do it, and it's good to be creative. So
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
yeah. So there's so many good questions. I'm so sorry we don't have time to answer the rest of them. But I think that's all for today, y'all. Or tonight, or whatever you are in the world in time zones. But I've been up since 4 because I had a meeting with like in Korea time zone, and I was just like, I don't know what's happening. But thank you all so much for being here. I hope you learned something from Bonnie's photo tips and TikTok tips and social media tips. Thank you, Bonnie, for doing this with me. I'm so happy we got to meet, at least digitally.
yeah,
You're gorgeous and sweet, and I'm already in love with you. Thank you, Naifa, for setting this up. I'm sure, I know more episodes like this will be coming, so y'all stay tuned. And thank you all for being here again.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.